Good morning. Nicely done, Steve. My name is Jan Shea, and I am so happy today to be here to assist our worship leader and my dear friend, Rebecca Fisher, as your worship associate for today's service. On behalf of First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, I welcome those of you who are here today to worship in person, as well as those who are joining us online. If you are new to First Unitarian, I invite you to check out our website, firstuuwilm.org, to learn more about us and to sign up for our email newsletter. First Unitarian Church is a welcoming congregation. We affirm the worth and dignity of all, no matter your racial or ethnic identity, pronouns or gender expression, sexual orientation, family structure, income, immigration status, language, size, or abilities, and you are welcome here. As a reminder, our current COVID protocol is that masks are now optional. Though we aren't yet back to coffee hour, we will be gathering for conversation in Parish Hall after the service. And now, let us prepare our hearts and minds for worship.
Waking up this morning, I smile, knowing there are 24 brand new hours before me. I vow to live fully in each moment and look at all beings with eyes of compassion.
If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to join us as Rebecca lights our chalice with these words by Thich Nhat Hanh. Let go of the past. Let go of the future. Let go of the present. Proceed to the opposite shore with a free mind, leaving behind all conditioned things. And now I invite you to join us as Rebecca, Seth, and I lead you in singing hymn number 1009, Meditation on Breathing. You can remain seated for this one. The hymn has 3 parts to it: a lower voice part, a mid-range part, and a part for higher voices. We're going to demonstrate each line, starting with Seth on the low part, followed by Rebecca in the middle, and then I'll sing the high part. This is just a demonstration. Your part will come next.
Can I get a C?
Oh, sorry. You can have a C.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Here we go.
No, perfect pitch over
Pick
here.
a note.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
Okay.
So this is the
Now
middle
here's
part.
Rebecca's part.
If you have a middle-sized voice. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
Okay, now here's the high part for you brave souls. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. Now, we're going to show you how this works in a round. Seth's going to sing his part twice, Rebecca will join in, and then I will join in, and we're going to repeat that twice. Then, you're going to choose whatever part you're most comfortable with, join in with us, and we'll do it 4 times. I will cue you when it's your turn. Are we ready?
I'm going to give you another C.
It's good to have a reminder.
Just to make sure.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe When I breathe out,
I'll breathe out love.
When I breathe in,
I'll breathe in peace.
When I breathe out,
I'll breathe out love.
When I breathe in,
I'll breathe in peace.
When I breathe out,
I'll breathe out love.
When I breathe in,
I'll breathe in peace.
When I breathe out,
I'll breathe out love.
When I breathe.
And now, please join me in affirming our mission. First Unitarian Church is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, advances justice, and transforms the world through loving action.
This morning's reading is from The Heart of the Buddha's Teaching by Thich Nhat Hanh, my teacher, and who sort of is the source of all the remarks and insight that I'm going to share with you today. When we look at the ocean, we see that each wave has a beginning and an end. A wave can be compared with other waves. We can call it more beautiful, higher or lower, longer lasting or less long lasting. But if we look more deeply, we see that a wave is made of water. While living the life of a wave, it also lives the life of water. It would be sad if the wave did not know it is water. It would think, someday I will have to die. This period of time is my lifespan, and when I arrive at the shore, I will return to non-being. These notions may cause the wave fear and anguish. We have to help it remove the notions of self, person, living being, and lifespan if we want the wave to be free and happy. Now, a wave can be recognized by signs, high or low, beginning or ending, beautiful or ugly. But in the world of water, there are no signs. In the world of relative truth, the wave feels happy as she swells, and she feels sad when she falls. She may think, I am high or I am low, and develop a superiority or inferiority complex. But when the wave touches her true nature, which is water, all her complexes will cease, and she will transcend birth and death. We become arrogant when things go well, and we are afraid of falling or being low and inadequate. But these are relative ideas, and when they end, a feeling of completeness and satisfaction arises. Liberation is the ability to go from the world of signs to the world of true nature. Now, we need the relative world of the wave, but we also need to touch the water, the ground of our being, to have real peace and joy. We shouldn't allow the relative truth to imprison us and keep us from touching absolute truth. Looking deeply into relative truth, we penetrate the absolute. Relative and absolute truths interembrace. Both truths, relative and absolute, have a value. Well, since my topic is the transformation of suffering, I'm going to start with an image of suffering, which is a doodle I drew when I was about 20, and I don't claim to be an artist, but for some reason this little doodle really captured something I felt at that age. And if you can't see it clearly, it's a naked young woman. She's kind of shivering and closed in on herself, and she's being grabbed at by two amorphous hands that are sort of coming out of a grayness. She's in the grip of this form. And to me, it expressed how I sometimes felt, which was overwhelmed, afraid, cold, sort of being swallowed up by a formless gray entity. Maybe I was trying to express depression, I don't know. Maybe I did suffer migraines and I didn't realize I was having migraines, but I would have these periods of extreme pain. Or maybe it was just general adolescent angst. But when I look at that picture of suffering, I just feel for that 20-year-old self that I was. Well, life went on. By my late 40s, I'd married, had kids. I was taking care of a dying mother-in-law who lived with us. But I'd also learned a thing or two. First, I had learned that my headaches and nausea were something called migraines. And second, I had learned that if I relaxed around the pain, I would still experience it, but I wouldn't suffer as much. And this distinction absolutely felt real to me. When your body is in pain, the normal tendency is to tense up around it. But when I learned to use supported yoga poses that favored deep relaxation, and I would go through my body and consciously relax every part of it, I visualized the pain in my temple as an ice cube that would melt a little every time I exhaled. And I found that I could feel really wonderful. You know, I had no pain here, my fingers and toes felt wonderful, except that one side of my head was exploding open. But it was just one part of my body. And sometimes I could keep that feeling of well-being in the rest of my body while just allowing the pain to happen in that one part of my body. Now, I often didn't have time for that deep relaxation. It took about an hour and a half. I was a working mother, also taking care of a very ill lady in my home. I had medication. I could take the medication, worked better when I had time to relax. But in our culture, working mothers and many other folks just power on, no matter how wretched we feel, no matter how much our bodies are telling us to stop, rest, heal. So I already had the notion that stopping and paying attention to what was going on in my body was good for me. And then around 2004, a friend of mine gave me a book called Peace is Every Step by the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. In retrospect, I can say that one book literally changed my life. It led me to join a meditation group, the Willow Branch Sangha, which is a group that practices mindfulness in the Plum Village or Linji tradition, which is Thich Nhat Hanh's school of Buddhism. And I've been sitting with Willow Branch for 15 years now. Last year, I ordained with the Order of Interbeing. That's what my brown robe signifies. It's the name of the Plum Village community of monastics and lay practitioners. Now, if you've read or listened to Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings, you got a little sample in the reading. The teachings can have a childlike simplicity, but they will also be understood in ever-deepening ways when you live and practice them. One example is the 5 contemplations. It's a tradition to read these contemplations before you eat to invite yourself into more mindful consumption. The 3rd contemplation reads, in part, "May we keep our compassion alive by eating in such a way that we reduce the suffering of living beings." Now, for years, I understood this statement simply as an invitation to eat a plant-based diet. Reduce the suffering of living beings clearly meant just don't slaughter animals. Do as little harm as possible. I've been a vegetarian for many years before beginning the practice, so I thought I had that one covered with no effort. And then one day, years after I started practicing, I was reciting the contemplations before a meal, and I noticed something else. I'm a living being too. So how do I eat to reduce my own suffering? Now, that's a lot more complicated answer than just eating a plant-based diet. What foods do I choose? What quantities? What What time of day do I eat what? And I'm still working on mastering that one. But the point here is that those practices can be understood in deeper and deeper ways, even as on the surface they start helping me already. Now, the stated goal of Buddhism is the end of suffering. No joke. It's a big goal. And Thich Nhat Hanh writes also in the heart of the Buddha's teaching, every second I am on the path that leads out of suffering, suffering is there to guide me, like it's your friend, which seems paradoxical. I think he means that there's different ways to suffer. You can let your suffering carry you away and be completely at its mercy. Or you can hold your suffering in mindfulness. You can look deeply at it. You can give yourself a little space between you and the causes of your suffering. And it can help you understand the true nature of reality. And that, in fact, is what enlightenment is. When you can clearly see what is, when you penetrate through all the stories and notions and just see things without categorizing them, you just what they are. This possibility of transformation of suffering arises from another insight Thich Nhat Hanh teaches, and this is really the core of his teaching, our fundamental interbeing. Now, if this sounds like it might be related to the seventh UU principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, I would agree. Nothing in our world, which in the reading Thich Nhat Hanh called the relative dimension, I also think of it as the historical dimension. Nothing in that world has an independent existence. So I'm going to give you a little outline here of some basic ideas from the Plum Village tradition, that everything I am, everything I'm made of, came from somewhere else. And because of conditions that are manifesting at this very moment, I'm able to stand here before you today and speak to you. Before conditions change, and everything I am made of goes somewhere else. Or one condition could change. I could lose my voice. It'll all still exist in some way, shape, or form. You remember the wave and the water metaphor from the reading. The wave is the individual, the historical dimension, me. The water is the cosmos, the ultimate dimension, or absolute. The wave manifests for a time, and then it sinks back into water. But the important thing is to remember is that the wave was never not water. Now, I've never been comfortable in water. I have terrifying nightmares about the ocean. So, as an alternative metaphor, I offer you the giant Armillaria astoye, the world's largest living organism. It's a fungus in Oregon that spans around 4 square miles. It's hard to get your head around it. Now, you can easily picture the individual mushrooms that pop up above ground and then perish, go back into the soil, and eventually become part of that fungus again. But all along, they're not the individuals they appear to be. They're just avatars of that great underground fungus. Even as they spring up miles apart and never see each other, they're still the same thing. You can take a photo of the above-ground manifestations of Armillaria, but you can't take a photo of the entire Armillaria. You cannot see it. So interbeing is very easy to understand on the physical level, I think. If you take the paper I'm reading from, it's made of wood and water. I think most people have a basic notion of how paper is made. But the tree that the wood came from depended on soil. It needed sun and water to grow. So already this paper has a connection to the sun and the sky. It wouldn't be here without the sun. The sun is in this paper. You take away the sun, no paper is possible. And then there were people who processed the wood to transform it into paper. There are people who built machines to do the work, engineers who figured out how to make that machine. Machines were made of metals that were mined from the earth, who knows where on the planet. So my piece of paper could not exist without all those people, those metals. If I look at this piece of paper, people drove it to a store and human hands stacked it on a shelf. I wouldn't have that piece of paper if all that hadn't happened, so I'm connected with those people too. Now, I can see that if I take away any of these elements, there's no more paper. And moreover, the set of conditions that brought this piece of paper to this place and time are so complex that they involve the whole universe, or at a minimum, our solar system. So nothing has an independent existence. It is all conditioned and interdependent. This is because that is. Our interdependence, I think, is easy to understand on a molecular, physical level. But after years of practice, I began to understand a little more about interbeing. And this is the part that really helped me transform my own experience of suffering. Interdependence is not just a physical phenomenon. Our emotions also inter-are. My feelings of anger, for example, aren't all my own. They're also my mother's and my father's anger. It's the anger of the society we live in, that I grew up in. It's the anger anyone anywhere has ever felt. I didn't invent anger. It's part of the human experience, and I don't get either the credit or the blame for its existence. If you want a more positive, uplifting example, appreciation for nature isn't all my own. That's another part of our common humanity. So my feelings inter-are, my perceptions inter-are, how I understand things, how I take things in, how I've learned to see things. Our ideas inter-are, even our very consciousness inter-is. Nothing you can think of, nothing, no thing, even an intangible thing like an idea, has an independent existence. It all came from somewhere else, supported by the favorable conditions that allowed that mushroom of an idea to pop up. Now, before you feel that means you're not special. You are. You are special. You are a unique combination of conditions. But everything you are came from somewhere else, and will go somewhere else again when conditions are no longer favorable for this version of ourselves. So, like the wave, though, I don't experience the nature of interbeing automatically. I can only live my life through this body, through this set of conditions. And it takes work to see my true fungal nature when I feel like I'm one of a special mushrooms in the forest, separate from everything else. So how does the insight of interbeing lead to the end of suffering? It seems like a grandiose idea, but I experience this in my daily life. Many of you know that I was a caregiver in one way, shape, or form for over 25 years. Now, ironically, as that young 20-year-old shivering, being taken away in the grayness, I had seen myself as somewhat self-absorbed. I never sought out situations where I was taking care of other people, either professionally or personally. And yet somehow, in my 30s, I had stumbled into the responsibility of taking care of the sick, the young, and the dying. All people that I loved. Now, at first, I was resistant. I did not feel up to the task. I wished I did not have these responsibilities. But when you've committed to other people in your life, whether they're children's, parents, life partners, or other adults, you really don't know where that commitment is going to lead you, what it will entail. Taking care of someone long term means letting go of many expectations and attachments like being able to lie down when you have a migraine headache. That might be off the books for you. Or planning a weekend to go visit a friend. No, that's not going to happen for you. Canceling a meeting you were going to attend. Using up every last sick day your job entitles you to so that you can take care of someone else, and then working while you feel like crap because you can't afford to take an unpaid day off for yourself. Rushing home after work, feeling you don't even have time to fill up your gas tank, let alone take a little walk in a park. Your small daily losses pile up, and letting go of those losses is often hard to do. You may feel as though your life is not your own. You're woken up in the middle of the night from a deep sleep by a loved one calling your name, and you are the only person in the world who can help in that moment. Oh, sorry, I'm reliving it all. But that was my intent. But that certainly isn't the whole picture. If some days I wish these responsibilities were not mine to bear, at other times, it was fine. Looking after another human is an easy way to give your life meaning, purpose. There's joy and bravery, compassion, and love in it. You feel so close to the people you take care of. But there's also the resentment, the anger, the fear, and the sorrow. Feeling like that can be overwhelming. But would you want to be numb to emotion? If I can't experience grief deeply, how can I experience joy? So besides helping that other person, how do you help yourself? How can you transform fatigue, resentments, reluctance, annoyance, and anger? Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from grasping and aversion. You might have heard this. Either you're pushing something away or you're holding something desperately close. And the challenge is to let life unfold without judging it, fully experiencing and participating, but without that grasping or aversion. Grasping is what it sounds like, clinging to people, feelings, things, conditions. Perhaps these things are close to you. Perhaps they're far away and you want them. And there's nothing wrong with wanting something, but the suffering comes when you decide the only way you will be happy is by having that thing the way you want it. Then you suffer when you lose it, or even if you fear you will lose it, or if you fail to get it. Aversion is the opposite. When you push people, feelings, things, or conditions away, you don't want to be feeling the pain, and you rail against having to experience that pain. Is there a way to hold things with equanimity, without the grasping or the aversion? Neither leaning too far in either direction so that you stay on the narrow way. I think of this as sort of walking on a tightrope, but not the kind of tightrope where you're just learning and it's fraught with tension. I'm picturing Philip Petit walking on a tightrope between the Twin Towers, playfully, at ease, taking time to lay down, unperturbed by the winds that are buffeting his rope and himself. So once you have practice on that tightrope, it becomes a lot easier. Now, I can't say that mindfulness practice has given me perfect equanimity, but it has allowed me to transform my suffering a little bit each day so that I could meet my duties of care with more joy and patience. And when I lay down at night, I could reflect that I had been the kind, compassionate person I aspired to be. It's not as though you have the insight of inner being, wow, and everything is suddenly radiant, forevermore perfect. Rather, you have the tools to recognize your suffering as it comes up again and again and again and again and again. And each time you can observe it and take care of it so it does not overwhelm you. Enlightenment is daily, ongoing work. It takes maintenance, and that's why we call it a practice, because you need to practice, practice, practice. And when you practice, it gives you space to see that life is happening all around you, every moment. There are elements of happiness in all situations I find myself in, and I do mean all. Now, I want to make a really important distinction here. I'm not talking about an it could be worse mindset, as in, well, my husband's sick, but it could be worse. I have a husband who loves me, and we have good health care. That's not what I'm talking about here. That at least approach tamps down your suffering, invalidates it, and that is not at all the intent of Buddhism. The practice of mindfulness does not say, the sun is shining, you have a roof over your head, what are you complaining about? On the contrary, when you practice mindfulness, you can see the sun shining and the rain falling all at the same time. They're both there. So you need to give your suffering the respect it deserves because it's there and it is real. And non-suffering is also there and it is also real. Mindfulness practice helps you see and feel everything, not to set anything aside or try to distract yourself from it. Just sit down with your suffering and look it in the eye. And a funny thing happens. At some point, you'll notice that, yes, in one part of your being, pain, sorrow, fear, anxiety, they're sitting there always in different amounts and degrees. But you'll also become aware that there's so much more in there. The suffering's just one part. There's the sun and the moon and the stars. There's the wind and the rain and the soil, all beings, plants, animals, minerals, they're all in there. Curiosity and adventure, love, laughter, peacefulness, joy, all in there and more. And the script suddenly flips. The upsetting stuff starts to occupy a smaller and smaller part of you. And the scary emotions, oh, you feel them, but they don't overwhelm you anymore because you're holding them gently, lovingly, with your superpower of mindfulness. I used to pass by a banner outside a church in Wilmington, not this one, that read, "Come empty, leave full." But it's wonderful to experience the opposite of that. When I go to my Sunday evening meditation group, sometimes I'm full of anger, thoughts about my projects, worries about the future, fatigue. And afterwards, I leave empty of all of that. Empty of attachment to specific outcomes, empty of grasping or aversion. Pema Chodron, who's a Buddhist teacher in a different tradition, wrote, and I stole her line for my sermon title, "You are the sky. Everything else, it's just the weather." And to my frightened and bewildered 20-year-old self, I would say, sit and wait and look deeply. And you may find that you can take that shadowy formlessness of your despair that you feel consumed by, and you can instead hold it within you and rock it like it's your baby. It can't consume you and take you away because you contain it, because you are the world. We usually sing a hymn at this point, but because of the nature of my sermon, if I can call it that, I just wanted to give you a little taste of the kind of meditation I practice. So I would invite you to make sure your body feels as comfortable as you can wherever you're sitting. You might want to think about just letting your shoulders drop. If you close your eyes, that's fine. If you just want to sort of let your gaze go out of focus, that's fine too, or stare at me all you want. It's your body. Now, I'm going to give you a two-part phrase, and then I'm going to give you a little précis of that phrase, one or two words that sort of encapsulate that phrase. And as you sit in silence, I invite you to try saying the little phrase when you breathe in and the second phrase as you breathe out. And we'll wait a few breaths between each thing so you have time to settle in with those words. So here's an example. I'll say, breathing in, I know that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I am breathing out. And the little shortened part is in, out. And then you'd breathe a few times in, out, okay? Ooh, that's not. Breathing in, I know that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I am breathing out. In, out. Breathing in, I am aware of my body. I'm aware that I have a body. And breathing out, whatever condition that body is in today, I smile to it. Awareness of body, smile to body. Breathing in, I am aware of my thoughts. Just aware of them, not categorizing them or pursuing them to their logical end. I'm just aware that a thought came up. And as I breathe out, I let go of that thought, even if it's unfinished. Awareness of thoughts, letting go of thoughts. Breathing in, I am aware of a feeling. It could be a happy feeling. It could be a difficult feeling. It could be a feeling I enjoy experiencing or a feeling I don't enjoy experiencing. I'm not going to categorize it. I'm just aware of it. And when I breathe out, I smile to that feeling. Awareness of feelings, smiling to feelings. Breathing in, I picture myself as a mountain. Breathing out, I feel solid. Mountain, solid. Each week, we pause to attend the concerns in our own part for ourselves, those we care about, and our world. Take another moment now to reflect on those concerns. Now, if you would like, you may speak the names or the concerns aloud in the sanctuary, or at home, write them in the chat. May all whose names were spoken and those unspoken find peace and healing this day.
It's time now to take a moment to reflect on stewardship of our beloved community. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, there is the mud and there is the lotus that grows out of the mud. We need the mud in order to make the lotus. If you don't have mud, the lotus won't manifest. This is a wonderful metaphor for stewardship, because we know that in order for us to keep First U growing and thriving, support for its programs and building expenses is vital. We have navigated our way through so much change and adversity these past 2+ years, in no small part due to the deep commitment of our congregation through both tireless volunteering and financial support. And right now, as our nation is struggling with inflation issues that are impacting nearly all of us in one way or another, it's important to note that these issues are also impacting our church. So I ask today that you continue to contribute whatever you are able, preferably in cash or check and not mud, to help keep First U blooming. There are 4 ways you can give to the church as displayed on the screen. For those here in the sanctuary, you can leave cash or checks in the box at the back of the sanctuary today. You can always mail a check to the church. You can go online to our website to donate, or you can use the Vanco Mobile Faith Engagement app on your smartphone to make a contribution. Thank you for your generosity. And now please join me in dedicating our offering to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action. We dedicate our lives and these our offerings. If you have a chalice at home, please join us in extinguishing it now. As Rebecca extinguishes our chalice, I give you these words from Thich Nhat Hanh. Do not say that I'll depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Look deeply. Every second I am arriving. To be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that are alive.